All right. To quote Nick Saban, all right, check this out. The Steelers have a good pass rush. We know this. The Steelers are at their best as a pass rush the first week of the season. The last 2 years, and everyone's talked about the Niners aren't good week one. The Niners aren't good week one. Accurately, everybody has talked about it because we've all watched it. Last year and the year before, the Steelers haven't just won week one. The Steelers beaten Joe Burrow and Josh Allen the first week of the season. And they did it in part by beating up both quarterbacks. Now, you'd be right to point out the Bengals didn't have a great offensive line last year, one of the worst rated offensive lines in the league. But they won 12 games, and they went to the AFC Championship game. They lost to the Bengals, or they lost to the Steelers with Trubisky last year. Last year, the Steelers sacked Joe Burrow week one 6 times and hit him 4 more times. That's 10 sacks and hits week one. As a team, as the season went on, the Steelers would go on to have 83 sacks plus QB hits for an average of under 5 per game. So they doubled their per game average against the Bengals week one last year. All right, you might say that's the Bengals. Their offensive line wasn't any good. Okay, let's go back the year before. Week one, Josh Allen and the Bills. The Bills won 11 games. The Bills pushed the Super Bowl champs to the limit in the divisional round. They lost the opener to the Steelers. Guess how many times the Steelers hit and sacked Josh Allen week one? Give you a hint. It's the same number as the number of times they sacked and hit Joe Burrow. 10 times. They sacked him 3 times. They hit him 7 more times. Was that above their season average? Yes, it was. They'd go on to average 6 sacks plus hits per game in 2021. But they got Josh Allen 10 times that day. And they got Joe Burrow 10 times last year. So how many times did they get Brock Purdy? I'm not worried about Brock Purdy's health necessarily. I mean, you're always worried about a 49ers quarterback's health, and he's coming off the elbow. But it's more just about winning the game. And the good news is, as much as they love to run the football, and the Niners love to run the football, and even with the weather, which we'll look at, Kyle's going to let Brock throw. So Colton McKivitz is at minimum an equal, everybody says. He's only started 5 games. To Mike McGlinchey as a pass blocker at right tackle. Don't get excited because you saw Cam Hayward on the injury report with a stomach. Reading some of the Steelers reports, apparently there's no reason to think that he's not going to play. So it's always part of the most basic part of the game. But just understand this. Yes, they got Watt. Yes, they got Cam Hayward. And yes, we all just assume they're good. But they're even better week one. The Steelers pass rush is at its best the first week of the season. So Burrow, Josh Allen, Brock Purdy. I mean, do you see any differences between the 3? I don't. Although I got this tweet last night. Some of you have been watching the show and listening to the podcast know that John has been very pro-Lions. I have been I haven't been anti-Lions. I rooted for the Lions last year. I just think the hype on the Lions has gotten a little out of control. And the reason I think that is because I think if Jared Goff is your quarterback, your ceiling will always be capped. And that didn't change. Watching them beat the Chiefs. But I got to admit, like, they look good. They're more talented than just they are talented enough to overcome some of their quarterback's limitations. And you got to give Goff credit. He stepped up and hit some huge throws, took some big hits. 3rd and 15, took a big hit, delivered the ball. So you give him credit. Know this. If Trey Lance ever looks as good as Jared Goff just looked, Kyle Shanahan's going to get a whole lot of shit. So he better win a Super Bowl like Sean McVay did. McVay won the Super Bowl with Stafford. The trade worked for the Rams. Nobody says, damn, you couldn't have done that with Goff? Of course not. We watched Stafford. He did things that Goff just can't do. But if Trey Lance, and the odds are not good that Trey Lance turns out to be as good as Jared Goff, because Jared Goff has turned out to be a legitimate NFL starter. It's a long road to legitimate NFL starter. Shanahan's going to hear it. If he's even almost as good as Goff, he'll hear it. But Bo said to me on Twitter, the Niners' best case scenario for Brock is that he turns out to be as good as Goff. Now, let's take away for a minute that this is Twitter. And and that maybe he's just having some fun. Like, we have a lot of fun on Twitter. The replies on Twitter are fantastic. I love reading Twitter replies. But on one hand, this isn't a crazy take. On one hand, you go, well, wouldn't that work? Wouldn't some version of Goff on the 49ers actually work for the 49ers? And the answer to that is, yeah, it kind of would. Now, could you win a Super Bowl like that if he's Goff? No. But here's the good news. He isn't Goff because he can move. He's not Mahomes. He's not Caleb Williams, but he's not Goff. He's not a statue. So some level of production near Goff's or around Goff's or better than Goff's, we could have a conversation about whether or not that's good enough for the 49ers. But the thing that Brock does that Goff can't is be mobile. Now, the Lions have done really well. I looked yesterday before the game because I thought Chris Jones, they're going to get after Goff anyway. Goff last year, one of the least sacked, one of the least pressured quarterbacks. When he gets pressured, it doesn't turn into sacks based on the numbers last year. So he gets the ball out and they do a good job of protecting him and telling him where to throw it, or he identifies where to throw it. But if Brock is as productive at Goff at every other thing, but adds the mobility, then he's a better player. And I think there's probably a little more upside there anyway. So Charlie says, he said best case scenario. How is that the best case scenario? Well, some people, that's what he's saying. This guy, Bo, good name, Bo Nickel, is saying that's what he thinks about Brock. So, you play well against the Steelers, who have guaranteed an interception. Patrick Peterson said, I've picked up the scent. I know where the picks are, which he's a vet. I hope he knows where a few picks are. But a lot of people are picking the Steelers. A lot of people. You might be, well, I don't know. That's what people say. The Niners are 2 or 3 point favorites. 82% of the money right now. 82% of the money is on the Steelers. The Steelers are the hot pick. NFL Network, I just had it on 10 minutes ago. And they asked which team could pull off the sneaky week 1 upset. And Schrager, keep in mind, Schrager picked the Niners to go to the Super Bowl yesterday. Schrager went with the Steelers. So I don't know if the Steelers are really that sneaky of a pick. But I will say this. The thing that we have not seen yet, and I went to a ton of practices, and I didn't see it, is this whole Niner group together, right? The Steelers, part of the momentum is they played a really good preseason. Kenny Pickett was perfect. 5 drives, 5 touchdowns, something like that. Even though they have you'd have to argue, one of the worst coordinators, at least if you just said based on what they've done in the league and you weren't even being negative, you'd say Matt Canada is not a top 25 NFL offensive coordinator. Doesn't mean he can't beat the Niners. I'm not saying that. They lost to the Falcons last year. They lost to the Bears last year. Purdy. Here's what we haven't seen. Purdy with Ayuk, with Debo, with Jennings, with Trent Williams, with Christian McCaffrey, with Elijah Mitchell, with Juice, with Kittle. The defense with Ward, who sounds like he's going to play, but he's got to heal. Warner, Hargrave, Bosa, Armstead, Greenlaw. That group we haven't seen. Forget about those of you watching from home, watching preseason games. You didn't see it. We barely saw it in practices. Like, that group just was not together a lot. So I do think we're going to see a little bit of a different level of the Niners. Now, here's the thing. It's going to be fumble weather. It's going to be turnover weather. It's going to be rainy. It's going to be humid. It's going to be muggy. The forecast right now has scattered thunderstorms becoming more widespread in the afternoon with a high of 76 and an 80% chance of rain. And I heard Tim Ryan say that the players, Tim Ryan's the 49ers radio analyst, the players were saying this is what the forecast looked like for Chicago last year. With one key difference, I would say, because I went back and looked at the weather last year when they played the Bears. The difference, and it was 69 degrees and raining. The difference was it was windy that day. It was 16 plus mile-an-hour winds. Right now in Pittsburgh, scheduled for about 5 mile-an-hour winds, which I guess is a good thing for Moody. But there's something else to watch. Not only is it supposed to rain in Pittsburgh this weekend, but they play a football game in the stadium. Don't call me Heinz Acrisure Stadium. They play a football game in the stadium on Saturday afternoon. Pitt plays a game against Cincinnati at 3:30 on Saturday afternoon. I guess maybe it's a 6:30 local time kick. So it's a Saturday night kick in the rain. That field's going to be torn up. Now they do a good job with it. They know it well there. They deal with Pitt playing there all the time. So maybe the field will be fine, but at least you have to be open to the possibility that it's torn up. I hope Jake Moody watches this game and watches the wind and watches the way the ball moves. Maybe go to the game. Would it be crazy? Throw on a Bobby Valentine mustache, a hat, fake nose and glasses, and go to the game, watch the game? Get a field pass, go stand there? If you want to watch the game, it's on the CW. So, fumble weather. Keep this in mind. Hassan Reddick last year tied with the Steelers' Alex Highsmith for the NFL lead with 5 forced fumbles. So when you are battling for yak in the rain, keep an eye out for Alex Highsmith. As for Moody, 3 of 5 field goals in the preseason, 1 of 2 extra points. How's the footing? We shall see. Really good slate of games in the afternoon. The good news is if you're a Niner fan, like some of you are, many of you are, you're not going to be too distracted in the morning. I've got maps here for the games. The morning games. The other game you'll probably want to watch, for me at least, is Titans Saints. That's the other early game that I think is pretty interesting. On CBS, Niners are on Fox with Joe Davis and Daryl Johnston. On CBS, the big game, which is all the red here on the map, is Browns Bengals. So that's their early game. And then on Fox, the Niners Steelers game is all that red. Most of the nation's going to get that game. Titans Saints. That game is the early game, right? Yeah. Titans Saints is this yellow game. So, use your YouTube TV or whatever to watch that. The afternoon is excellent. Philly, New England. That's in red here. So if you're watching CBS, if you flip it on, you're not getting that game. You're getting Raiders, Broncos on the West Coast in green, which is also must see. And then Miami Chargers is the rest. So all 3 games on CBS in the afternoon are fantastic. The Fox afternoon game is 2 games. Packers, Bears. Okay. I'm interested. And Rams, Seahawks. I'm also interested. But those 3 CBS games in the afternoon, Eagles, Patriots, Dolphins, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos. Yes. By the way, I did a little prize picks. I got Russell Wilson in my prize picks above passing yards just because I thought, I don't know, we'll see. Where's the map from? This is from 506 Sports. 506sports.com. It's great. It tells you all the TV windows and all the who is broadcasting the games, which I know you guys care about a lot. I care about it. Oh, he's calling that game? Oh, that kind of thing. Yeah, I haven't watched ACC football on the CW yet, so I'm looking forward to that. Not only is there a chance of rain, but thunderstorms. Who is more hurt by a potential lightning delay? Delays have been good to the Niners historically. Super Bowl delays, at least. That grass kills. That grass? Pittsburgh's grass or just general grass? I think you mean Pittsburgh's grass, right? So what do we reckon? How many pass attempts will Purdy have? What's the over-under? I'd guess 23. I'm going to go higher. You know how many times Trey Lance threw the ball last year against the Bears in the pouring rain? 28. Completed 13 of them. So I'm going to go higher. Remember last year, what was that rain game the Niners played at home? And Brock opened up throwing the football twice down the field. So, yeah, just no 7-step drop. I agree. I should throw those out. You got hit on one in the preseason. He got lit up last year. Get it out. Isn't Darnold Goff? Darnold would be lucky to turn into Goff, ironically enough. Maybe not ironically, but interestingly enough. YouTube TV's got multi-view, so you can have red zone and local games on one screen. All right, this is my first football. I got YouTube TV at the beginning of the year. So this is my first football season with YouTube TV. Multi-view has been cool, but the engineers haven't quite gotten it to the point where you can just pick any channel. So is that how it works with YouTube TV's multi-view? You can go red zone and local games on one screen. Is that the way they do that? I haven't experienced it yet. So looking forward to it. Watt going to have a field day with McKivitz. I mean, he's Watt. Like, you got to, this is part of the deal. This is the same thing we said about the Niner game last year with the Eagles, which is Hassan Reddick is just going to beat your guy. He's going to do it. So don't make your tight end be the guy that he beats. If he is, give him some help. Give him some help otherwise. Kittle playing in this game is a big deal from, I think, more a blocking standpoint than a pass. I mean, obviously, as a pass receiving standpoint, it's a big deal, but from a blocking standpoint, that's where he's really going to be critical this week. They got everybody else healthy, so that's where I think he's going to be critical. By the way, if you're enjoying this weekend, I didn't put the photo in here. Somebody sent me a photo of themselves in Pittsburgh enjoying Tito's. Send us pictures. Tag us in your photos, enjoying some Tito's. Podcast, the YouTube channel, and the podcast is down in the description. Brought to you by Tito's Handmade Vodka. So go ahead and share your enjoyment, however you want to drink it. Tito's Handmade Vodka, distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. Also, while you're here, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so you know when things go live. We appreciate that. Other thing I wanted to mention was college football. Big games this week. A lot of good Pac-12 games this weekend. You got Colorado, Nebraska, 9 a.m. Another Coach Prime game early, 9 a.m. Colorado is now the 22nd ranked team in the nation. Tickets very expensive. It's going to be hot. I've been to Boulder many times. For those of you who haven't been, Colorado football discussions don't come up a lot in casual football conversations the last 5 years, but I say this every time it comes up. Boulder, Colorado in September is one of the best places on earth. That stadium, I've called multiple games at that stadium in September, also in other months, but in September. And mostly Colorado's been bad or average, but no better than average and probably below average. And they always have a good crowd because the town it's a legit college town. They love to party. They always have a good crowd early in the year, even when they're not good and they're playing Northern Colorado. I did a game there, Colorado, Northern Colorado. Ed McCaffrey was the coach. His one son was the OC. His other son was the quarterback. Dylan and Max, or I can't keep track how many of them there are. But anyway, it was all McCaffrey's. The place was awesome. The crowd was fantastic. This is prime 22nd ranked team in the nation, the story of college football, and they're playing their biggest rival, Nebraska. And it's going to be at 9 a.m. I think it's going to Pacific, 10 a.m. local for them. It's going to be incredible. Texas, Alabama's in the afternoon. Wisconsin visits Washington State. That's a rare one. Stanford, USC is at night. Auburn, Cal is at night. So there's some really good games. Hope Utah gets the win against Baylor. Still no Rising or Keithy. Baylor lost last week to Texas State. I think Utah will, but Utah's offense without Rising it's a significant drop-off. So they need him back. But whatever happens in that game, as long as they get him back by week 4, when conference play begins for them, they'll be fine next week against Weber State. I think that's probably when he returns, and then they play UCLA in week 4. As long as they get him back then, they'll be fine. Washington, SC, Oregon State, Oregon, that's the race. And the Utes, that's the race. 100 degrees, 7:30 in Tempe at kickoff. Yeah, Arizona State's hosting Oklahoma State on Saturday night. Arizona goes to Mississippi State on Saturday night. So Niners versus Pittsburgh, a marquee game that feels like a trap game. Please, Kyle, no 7-step drops. I don't think it's a trap game. I like all these guys. If you're of the age of a 49ers player, you grew up at a time when, and we're still in the time, but especially when they grew up, the Pittsburgh Steelers were legit. Like the Pittsburgh Steelers, no one ever calls them a dynasty, but they're like whatever a dynasty of just being really excellent without being truly great is. That's what they are. Relevant, competitive. Every franchise almost would aspire to be as successful as them. So, the Steelers, I don't think sneak up on you. Then think about their players, especially on defense. They're going to be able to run the ball. So you got to physically be ready for them. So it's not a trap game. Like if you are of the age of these Niners players, you have just an embedded kind of understanding that playing the Steelers is a big deal. In the same way that you just in your DNA understand that playing a game against the Cowboys is a big deal, right? Like it's just a big deal. It's just, it inherently because you grew up watching football. So I don't think there's a trap there. And everyone's picking the Steelers. Tomlin, 17 years, no losing seasons, even with Big Ben's corpse. Do you know who has the third most wins in the NFL? I mean, now because I just said it. I mean, the way I said it. Last 3 years, the Chiefs and the Bills are the only two teams that have won more games than the Steelers. By the way, the Steelers last year were the 6th best team in the NFL against the spread. The Steelers were 10-6-1 against the spread. Tyler Kroft versus Hassan Reddick, rematch in October when the Dolphins play the Eagles. Good luck to Tua. At least next year, there's a lot of good QBs in the draft, and Kirk Cousins will be a free agent. I'm not the first or even the 7th or even the 300th person to tell you this, but Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback at Washington, they play Tulsa this week. If you want to watch it, you can. It's not going to be anything special. The game to watch is next week when Washington plays at Michigan State. You just need to get Peacock to watch that game. So just get Peacock next week, and you can watch Washington and Michigan State on Peacock next week. Michael Penix Jr., who led the nation in passing last year. Again, everyone talks about Michael Penix Jr. Like I saw this interview with him the other day, and they're like, people don't know. You're a Heisman candidate. Like, yeah, bro, he finished top 10 in the Heisman voting last year. People voted for him for the Heisman last year. They gave him votes. He led the nation in passing. He went to Indiana. He almost beat Ohio State. The thing about him is he's in his 6th year of college football. But because he has an injury history and because he's old for a draft prospect, a good team is going to get Michael Penix because he's not going to go in the top 10, I don't think. People are talking about him like he's a 2nd or 3rd round pick. It's part of why he came back to school. When I watch him, I go, you can do a lot worse in the 1st round than Michael Penix Jr. So I think somebody's going to end up getting him, 20, 22, 25, 28. And I think if you're a good team who doesn't win the championship or you got some picks and you can move around a little bit, I think a good team is going to get Michael Penix in the draft next year. Unless it just gets so desperate and 2 quarterbacks go 1-2 and then another guy goes 3 or 4 or 5 or something like that. Penix is worthy, I think, of being a top 15. Like if Mac Jones is a top 15 pick, Michael Penix is without question a top 15 pick. He's one of the best deep ball throwers on the face of the earth. He throws a better deep ball than half the NFL. Truly. I mean, I don't think, maybe more. Most of the NFL cannot throw a deep ball as good as Michael Penix. I don't know if the Niners have a guy that can throw a deep ball as good as Michael Penix. So if they do, it's Darnold. But he's incredible. Now, he doesn't get touched. He doesn't get hit. They block him. He's got 3 premier receivers. I saw a college football guy last night on Twitter said that the Chiefs would have won the game if they had Washington's receivers. They would have beat the Lions, and then he put in parentheses the Huskies, not the Commanders, which I agree. Like they got 3 legit receivers: Jalen McMillan, Rome Odunze, Jalen Polk. These guys, if you remember the Chris Peterson Washington teams that put up a bunch of points, it kind of looks like that. They hit bombs. Michael Penix last week, they played Boise State, had 11 completions of 20 yards or more. I mean, it was bombs away, and it's going to be bombs away again this week, and it's not really going to matter because it's Tulsa. But somebody good is going to get Michael Penix next year, and it's going to be a gift for them, and it's going to be a gift for him. And he's going to be a guy, Caleb's going to go somewhere bad. Drake May is going to go somewhere bad. Penix is going to be the guy. Caleb's the best guy, but Penix is going to be the one that hits the ground running, because in a weird way, it's going to be like an incredible value pick because he's got some knocks against him, the injury history and the age. Also not a great, he was a really good athlete, but since his injuries, he doesn't really run anymore. So better than Jeff George? I don't know. I have Apple, Hulu, Netflix, YouTube, Prime, Disney. And that's where you draw the line, huh? I don't have a login for P. I got to get, I'm going to have to buy or rent whatever, $6, whatever it's going to cost me. It's all right. I'm still spending less money than I was spending with Xfinity. So it's fine. Oh, well, look, I thought it was crazy too when Mayoko said what he said about Darnold's arm. Then I watched him in practice for a month and I went, I didn't watch Jeff Garcia in person. I did actually watch some Jeff Garcia highlights the other day. But yeah, I mean, his arm is fantastic. People undervalue Brock so much. Narrative around him is that he isn't gifted, but he has plus attributes for agility, field vision, throwing on the run, feel as well. I mean, Mike Tomlin asked about him this week, said, we played the clip earlier in the week. Said, yeah, it's more about Shanahan, which is true. It's true. It doesn't mean that anybody can do what Brock does, though. We'll see. What if he gets to a team that's in win now mode and never gets to develop? He'll be fine. Michael Penix can go. That's what I'm saying. Michael Penix can go to a team that's in win now mode. He'll be fine. He has much more playing experience than Trey. I mean, it always comes back to Trey Lance. He's got a lot of playing experience. He's played in some big time games. He's played in adverse situations. He has carried teams. He's gone toe to toe with Ohio State. He went on the road and beat Oregon last year. So, no, I know it's a joke. It was a good joke, though. I guess I shouldn't say I know it was a joke. I can see that it might have been a joke. But at this point, I assume that it's all war. If you could trade Purdy for Pickett right now, would John Lynch do it? No. They would not do that. Pickett, the only offensive captain of the Steelers. Do you really think Darnold can win if Purdy goes down? Well, what I've said about Darnold all offseason is, not all offseason since I started going to practice, is that I'm intrigued. Can't lie. I'm intrigued. But I said this yesterday on the Wednesday. The odds that he's better than Purdy, the odds that Darnold is better than Purdy are not good. But it's possible that there's something there that Kyle can bring out of him that other teams haven't been able to bring out of him. He has played for bad organizations. I'm not going to rehash the whole thing, but his skills are pretty special. They are. His skills are special. And I'd be intrigued. I think Kyle's intrigued. I think Kyle's been intrigued for a long time. That said, doing it in a few preseason drives and doing it in practice might as well be another world from doing it in real games. And the one thing you know about Brock is when the real games start and when the real bullets fly, it's not too big for him. And his brain is fast enough to handle it all. I don't know if Darnold's is. We don't know if so far the evidence is probably not, right? But I'd gone from completely writing Darnold off before the season to watching him in practice and going, I get it. I understand why Kyle's intrigued, but we won't really know until he gets in real games. And at this point, you would just have to bet against it, given that is to the point of the comment earlier about Brock's plus, and the it factor and all that. It might just be this simple, right? That Brock kind of has the thing you got to have in order to succeed in games, and that Darnold doesn't. And there's a laundry list of a long list of quarterbacks that are good enough in practice and not good enough in games. So, can the Niners win it all? Yeah, they can. They can. I mean, you go through the list of players I rattled through earlier. Absolutely, they can. And if they don't, it's a disappointment. I mean, they've been right there on the doorstep multiple years in a row. The playoff lights were too big for him. Against the Cowboys, Brock had 214 and no touchdowns. I don't think it was the playoff lights. I think it was a legit defense. He has to. That's the other thing. He has to get better. I've heard a lot this week reading and listening to some like Pittsburgh stuff. Year 2 for Kenny Pickett. This is the year, which everybody always says, year 2, that's when you take your stride. It's one of these things that everybody says. I'm not sure if recent history shows that that's what's really happening in the NFL. We could dive into it. I'm sure somebody's done the study, but it feels like it's more of a thing that everybody says and less actually the thing that happens. Like, did Justin Fields take a big step last year? Year 2. So we'll see. But like the same applies to Brock. Brock's got to be better, right? Brock's got to be better. He's got to continue to improve. If he doesn't, then at this time next year, they'll probably have a different quarterback. Ever noticed how everyone talks about Brock's intangibles? No, earlier in the show, we talked about mobility, creativity, field vision, accuracy. I think he's been pretty accurate. I think he's been pretty accurate. So it goes beyond just it factor. The reason it factor comes up is when we compare him to Darnold, who has all of the physical skills, but we're not sure has the ability to let it translate in games and consistently be successful. So that's where it comes up with Brock, right? It's more about if Darnold had some of that, or maybe he does, and we haven't been able to tap into it. If he had that though, or he shows that, then he becomes a very expensive quarterback. So, all right, that's it for Friday. Thanks to everybody for hanging. If you're here and you haven't hit that like button and you didn't hate it, hit it. If you hated it, a like spite that would really stick it to me. And boy, would that piss me off. So whatever your motivation or lack of motivation, because it's a Friday and you're all probably about to pack it in, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Help it grow. Appreciate that. Back with more soon. As always, if you want to catch the show on the go, podcast is down in the description below. And tell all your friends. Tell all your friends and your enemies, as John would say. Go Blue Devils. Davis High. All right. Thanks for hanging, everybody. Talk soon.